In the quiet corner of Karachi at a small but powerful observatory, Dr. Ayan Malik sat before a glowing screen late at night. The world outside was asleep, but her eyes were fixed on the strange wave patterns dancing across her monitor. They were not normal. Space had always spoken to her through light and silence, but this was different. The signals were rhythmic, deliberate, like a heartbeat coming from the far edge of the solar system. She had seen solar flares, pulsar echoes, and black hole distortions, but never something that looked so alive. At first, she thought it might be a satellite glitch or cosmic noise. But when she compared data with other observatories around the world, she realized it wasn't just her equipment. Every major telescope from California to Tokyo had picked up the same thing. Pulses of energy beyond Jupiter's orbit coming closer every day. The scientific community buzzed with excitement. The media called it the Galactic Whisper. People around the world stared at the night sky with wonder. Some prayed, some feared, and others celebrated, believing they were witnessing the dawn of first contact with intelligent life. Ayan didn't celebrate. Something about the readings bothered her. They were too organized, too clean. Nature was messy. Even intelligent signals carried traces of randomness. But this was precision beyond imagination. It felt cold, like something calculating each movement before it happened. Her colleagues told her she was overthinking, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something vast and powerful was watching back. Days passed, and the signals grew stronger. The world's governments began preparing for contact. The United Nations formed a new branch called the Earth Defense Accord, a coalition meant to represent humanity as one voice in case of extraterrestrial communication. Nations that once argued now worked together, united by curiosity and fear. The first clear image came from a probe near Saturn, massive metallic objects gliding silently through space, their surfaces glowing with blue veins of light. There were 12 of them moving in perfect formation like a fleet of living machines. The world gasped. The aliens were real. News channels played the footage nonstop. Children waved at the sky. Scientists prepared messages of peace. Soldiers quietly loaded weapons in hidden bases. Religion and science clashed and then merged. Some said they were angels, others said conquerors. Ayan only watched the data. She wasn't drawn to the lights or the beauty of the ships. She was drawn to the numbers. The energy readings from those ships were terrifying. Power levels that could vaporize a planet. Frequencies that resonated with deep cosmic background noise as if whispering to something ancient and asleep. When the fleet finally reached Neptune's orbit, everything went silent. No signals, no energy pulses, nothing. For 3 days, the ships floated like shadows among the planets. Then, without warning, one of them broke formation and accelerated toward Earth. It moved faster than any human craft could dream of. Within hours, it entered orbit, and the world held its breath. The ship didn't attack. Instead, it sent a message. A single sentence translated across all human languages. "We come as allies of peace." It was too perfect. Too rehearsed. Ayan sat at her console, staring at the translation and feeling the chill crawl down her spine. The message came through a frequency pattern identical to the strange pulses she had been tracking. It wasn't communication, it was control. She noticed that every time the ships transmitted a peace signal, the planet's magnetic field shifted slightly, as if responding. Earth was reacting, but not in a way anyone could understand. Within days, the alien ships began sending beams of light into the upper atmosphere. Scientists around the world claimed it was harmless, just scanning or communication, but Ayan saw something else. The beams weren't just observing, they were constructing. Around the planet, invisible filaments of energy began forming, like spider webs stretching across the sky. Only high-energy sensors could detect them, but the pattern was clear. A net was forming around Earth. She tried to warn her superiors. "They're building something," she said, pointing at the energy map on her screen. "It's not protection, it's confinement," but no one listened. The world was too caught up in the idea of peace. The president appeared on television, shaking hands with a glowing projection of the alien envoy. People cheered. Social media flooded with messages like "Welcome," "Friends from the stars." Ayan watched in silence, her unease growing heavier with every passing hour. At night, she found herself standing on the roof of the observatory, looking at the faint blue glow above the clouds. It looked beautiful, like auroras stretching across the sky. But beauty, she thought, can be the most dangerous disguise. When she closed her eyes, she imagined the ships out there, moving with quiet purpose, not as guests, but as hunters setting a trap. The next morning, her assistant Samir ran into the lab, pale and shaking. "You need to see this," he said. He played a recording captured by one of their deep space receivers. It was a transmission between two alien ships, partially decoded through pattern analysis. The translation was rough but chillingly clear. "The bait world is ready. The seal will hold until the signal awakens." Ayan's blood ran cold. The words echoed in her mind, bait world. What did they mean? Who or what were they trying to awaken? She felt a sharp wave of fear, but also an unexplainable sense of truth. Somehow Earth wasn't their target. It was their tool. That night, storms rolled across continents. Lightning flashed more often than usual, and compasses around the world spun erratically. The alien fleet adjusted its orbit, forming a perfect circle around Earth. Ayan spent sleepless nights decoding every piece of data she could find, searching for meaning. The pattern of the alien beams matched an ancient signal found in the oldest records of space observation. A pulse detected by early satellites decades ago and dismissed as random noise. It was the same signature, identical in frequency and timing. Whatever they were doing, it was not new. It was something that had been done before, long before humans ever looked up. The more she dug, the darker the truth seemed. She found old research papers, classified documents from secret observatories in the 1960s, that mentioned a similar event in another star system. The report ended abruptly, with a single note written by a scientist who later vanished. "Do not answer the signal. It is not calling us, it is warning us." Ayan leaned back in her chair, trembling. Her hands shook as she stared at the screens filled with cosmic data, realizing that the aliens' arrival was not a first contact. It was a continuation. They were following a pattern, a ritual maybe, something they had done countless times before across the galaxy. Earth wasn't special. It was just the next location in a cycle of fear. When she tried to alert the Earth Defense Accord again, her messages were intercepted. She received a warning email from a government official telling her to stop spreading panic theories. She was silenced. But she couldn't stop. The truth had already rooted deep inside her. Late one evening, while the world watched a global broadcast of the alien fleet sending peace lights into the sky, Ayan quietly began recording her private logs. She documented every reading, every anomaly, every pulse. "If something happens," she whispered into the recorder, "the world must know this was not an invitation. It was preparation." Outside, the auroras brightened, spreading across the entire sky. People came out of their homes to take pictures, smiling, unaware that the same light that painted the heavens was the same energy that would soon shake the universe awake. And far beyond the planets, in the dark ocean of stars, something ancient stirred. It had no name, no form, only awareness. The signal that reached it was familiar, a call it had once answered eons ago. As it began to move, reality itself seemed to tremble. Back on Earth, Dr. Ayan Malik stared at her screens one last time and whispered to herself, "They think they've come to control us. But they've just rung the wrong bell." The unknown was coming, and the night sky had never looked so alive or so dangerous. The next few weeks changed everything for Earth. After the aliens' arrival, the world was filled with both hope and confusion. People called them the Vor Dominion, a name taken from the translation of their first message. Their ships floated silently above the planet, shining like blue moons in the night sky. They sent beams of soft light to different parts of Earth: New York, Moscow, Karachi, Tokyo, Cairo, and Johannesburg. The beams didn't destroy or harm anything. They only seemed to study. So the governments told everyone not to panic. The aliens, they said, had come in peace. Dr. Ayan Malik watched those beams every night from the observatory rooftop. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was too quiet. The aliens never came down to the ground. They never showed their faces or made personal contact. Everything was done through their ships and translated messages. They promised knowledge, energy, and technology, and humans believed them quickly. Ayan, however, kept studying the hidden frequencies within their transmissions. And what she found terrified her. The signals the Dominion sent had two layers. The first layer was simple communication, the part humans could understand. But behind that there was a second layer, a deep, vibrating tone that wasn't meant for human receivers. It was like they were speaking to something else, something not visible. Ayan ran the sound through different analyses, and when she slowed it down, the pattern looked almost biological, like a pulse. It wasn't just communication, it was a heartbeat. Meanwhile, the world celebrated what they called the Great Alliance. Leaders from all nations gathered to speak to the Vor Dominion through a holographic projection that appeared above the United Nations headquarters. A tall figure made of light introduced itself as High Envoy Galen. Its voice was calm, elegant, and cold. "We come," it said, "to protect this young world from what sleeps beyond the stars." Everyone clapped. The alien even smiled, or at least seemed to. Ayan sat in her lab watching the transmission, her eyes narrowing. She had seen that phrase before in one of the intercepted Dominion messages, but the translation had been slightly different. The real line was not to protect, but to prepare. Over the next days, the aliens began constructing something around the planet. It wasn't a machine, at least not in any human sense. It was made of pure light and energy, forming thin, almost invisible lines that connected between ships like a glowing spiderweb in the dark. The media called it the Halo Shield, believing it was meant to guard Earth from cosmic radiation. People were amazed and grateful. But Ayan noticed something chilling. Every time a new part of the structure appeared, the magnetic field of Earth shifted slightly, like a soft push from an invisible hand. She stayed awake for nights, studying the readings. One evening, her assistant Samir walked into the lab with 2 cups of coffee and saw her staring blankly at the data. "You haven't slept in 2 days," he said gently. Ayan looked at him and whispered, "They're not building a shield, Samir. They're building a trap." He frowned, not understanding. She zoomed into the data on her screen and showed him how the energy lines connected not above the planet, but deep beneath it, into Earth's magnetic field. "It's not protecting us," she said. "It's binding us." Samir stared at the display. "Binding? Why?" Ayan shook her head slowly. "Because they're afraid of something. Something that's not us." The next morning, she decided to speak to the Earth Defense Accord again. She sent them all her findings, graphs, and analysis reports, proving that the so-called Halo Shield was actually feeding energy into a larger pattern. But her warning was ignored again. The Accord spokesperson smiled on TV, saying that conspiracy theories were normal in times of global change. The people cheered, waving alien symbols and flags that read, "One galaxy, one future." That night, Ayan received an encrypted message on her personal server. It was from an anonymous source within the government. The message only contained 2 words, "You're right." Her heart started beating fast. She typed back immediately, asking who they were. No reply came, but a few minutes later a file began downloading automatically onto her computer. It was a recording, an intercepted communication between 2 Dominion ships. The voice translation software struggled to decode it, but one line stood out clearly. "The trap is nearly complete. The Awakener will sense it soon." Ayan played the file again and again, trying to understand. "Awakener?" she muttered. Samir leaned closer. Maybe they mean a weapon? But deep down she knew it wasn't a weapon. The tone, the fear in the alien's voice, it didn't sound like they were planning to attack. It sounded like they were terrified of what they might wake up. The next day, strange things began happening on Earth. People all around the world started having vivid dreams. Dreams of huge shadows moving through space, of an eye opening in the dark, of voices whispering in forgotten languages. Psychologists called it mass anxiety from contact stress. But the dreams were too specific, too similar. Even Ayan had one. In her dream, she stood in a sea of stars, and something enormous moved behind her. A creature so vast that its presence made her bones vibrate. A voice echoed in her head saying, "You are the key." She woke up screaming. Meanwhile, the Dominion continued their work calmly, assuring humans that the Halo Shield was almost finished. They sent holographic images of glowing cities and promised to share technology that could end hunger and disease. And yet the magnetic disturbances kept increasing. Compasses went wild, animals behaved strangely, and auroras began appearing in countries that had never seen them before. Ayan's team secretly started recording everything. They noticed that the energy web around Earth pulsed every few hours, sending waves into deep space. It was like a signal, a beacon, But a beacon for what? One night while analyzing the pulse frequency, Ayan noticed something chilling. The pattern matched an ancient radio anomaly from over a century ago, an unexplained deep space signal first recorded in the 1920s, nicknamed the Silent Cry. It was believed to be just background noise, but now she knew it wasn't. The Dominion wasn't sending a signal, they were replicating it. And that old signal was not human in origin. She sat in the dark lab, whispering to herself, "They're not here for us. They're here because of what's under us." The realization hit her like ice water. The pattern wasn't just in space, it was mirrored in Earth's magnetic core. Whatever the Dominion feared, it wasn't out there. It was down here, connected to Earth itself. A sudden loud crash interrupted her thoughts. The observatory doors burst open and a group of soldiers entered, wearing black uniforms with no insignia. "Dr. Malik," their leader said sternly, "you're coming with us." Samir tried to stop them, but they pushed him aside. Ayan demanded to know why. "You've been accessing restricted transmissions," the man said. "You're interfering with planetary security." They confiscated her computers and data drives, deleting everything they could. But Ayan had been clever. Before they arrived, she had already backed up her files to a secret server hidden in a weather satellite. As the soldiers drove her away, she looked up at the sky through the window of their vehicle. The alien ships glowed above, and the halo shield shimmered faintly across the stars. For a moment it looked almost beautiful, but deep in her heart she knew it was a cage, one humanity had stepped into willingly. At a secret facility she was questioned for hours. They asked her where she got the transmission, who sent her the file, and what she believed the Dominion's real purpose was. She told them everything. Some laughed. Others looked frightened. Finally, one officer, older than the rest, leaned closer and whispered, "We know." He told her that Earth scientists had discovered traces of the same signal beneath Antarctica decades ago, a constant hum below the ice, matching the Dominion's pattern exactly. "They're not here to save us," he said softly. "They're trying to make sure it doesn't wake up again." Ayan sat in silence, her mind spinning. "So they buried it?" she asked. The man nodded. "Long ago. Maybe before our species even existed. They released her later that night, warning her not to speak publicly again. But the truth was already burning in her mind. As she walked out of the facility, she looked up at the glowing night sky. The Dominion ships hung like watchful gods above, and the halo shield sparkled faintly, its lines complete now. The trap was ready. Ayan whispered to herself, "They think they're the hunters, but they're the ones being hunted." And far away beyond the stars, something heard the signal, something ancient, something vast. The Dominion had awakened what they once tried to hide. Earth, the bait world, was glowing like a beacon in the dark, calling out to the oldest terror in the galaxy. The night the stars dimmed, the world realized that something had gone terribly wrong. For days, the alien ships had been silent, hovering like cold guardians in the sky, their blue light fading to a deep crimson. The halo shield that once looked beautiful now glowed like a wound around Earth. Every few minutes it pulsed with violent light, sending waves of energy that rattled buildings and made animals scream. Then, without warning, every device on Earth, phones, satellites, computers, flickered and died. For the first time in modern history, the world went completely dark. Dr. Ayan Malik was at the observatory when it began. She stood by the window, watching the strange glow stretch across the sky like veins of fire. The air vibrated and the floor shook beneath her feet. Samir burst into the room, shouting that all global communication had failed. The emergency lights flickered as they tried to access their instruments, but everything was blank. The readings made no sense. The frequency patterns from the Dominion ships had changed. They weren't broadcasting anymore. They were screaming. Ayan stared at the graphs on the last functioning monitor. The energy output from the halo shield had multiplied 1,000 times in a matter of seconds. It wasn't just a shield or a trap anymore, it was a key. "They've opened it," she whispered. Samir didn't understand. "Opened what?" he asked, his voice trembling. Ayan turned to him slowly, her eyes wide with horror. The thing they were trying to keep asleep. Outside, thunder roared without clouds. The sky twisted into strange colors, violet, red, and silver. The magnetic field around Earth had gone wild, bending light itself. Birds fell from the sky, and ocean tides rose higher than ever before. People around the world looked up, terrified as the alien ships began to move for the first time in weeks. They formed a ring directly above the planet, aligning perfectly with the poles. From the center of the formation, a blinding beam shot upward, cutting through the halo shield. A sound followed, a deep, low hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was not a sound humans were meant to hear. It vibrated inside bones, hearts, and minds. Some people fainted, others screamed, and some simply stood frozen, eyes wide open, whispering words that didn't make sense. Ayan clutched her head as the sound filled her skull. For a moment, she saw flashes of something impossible. Mountains of light, cities floating in empty space, and a shadow stretching larger than planets. Then she heard it, a voice not spoken but felt. It whispered her name. Ayan. Her body froze. The voice was deep, ancient, and emotionless. "You carry my echo," it said. The vision shattered, and she collapsed onto the floor, gasping. Samir helped her up, his face pale. "You heard it too?" he asked. She nodded slowly, trembling. "It's Awake." Around the world, chaos spread. The Dominion ships started collapsing. Their smooth metal surfaces cracked as if crushed by invisible pressure. Massive explosions lit up the night sky as one ship after another fell burning into the oceans. Governments tried to fight back, firing missiles and energy weapons, but everything failed. The aliens weren't being attacked by humans. They were being destroyed by something unseen, something everywhere. In the ruins of the observatory, Ayan and Samir struggled to keep their equipment running on backup power. The data they managed to capture made her stomach twist. The source of the disturbance wasn't coming from space, it was coming from Earth's core. "It's inside," she said softly. "It was always here." She explained that when the Dominion had built the Halo Shield, they weren't trying to keep humanity trapped. They were trying to contain something buried within the planet, a fragment of consciousness that had been sleeping since the beginning of time. The energy web had been a lock, not a weapon. But by activating it, they had released the very thing they feared most. Samir looked at her, terrified. "Then what is it?" he asked. Ayan looked up at the dark sky where the last Dominion ship disintegrated into dust. "It's not a creature," she said. "It's an idea, a living thought." As the alien fleet burned, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. The night was alive with motion. Massive shapes formed in the distance, shadows that weren't solid yet somehow existed. Cities across the world reported seeing the same thing. Enormous outlines moving behind the clouds as if something vast was pressing against the fabric of reality. Scientists couldn't explain it. Priests called it divine. But Ayan knew better. Every instrument she had pointed to a single point in space, an ancient source of radiation near the center of the galaxy. It pulsed in perfect sync with Earth's magnetic field. It was as if the planet was a piece of it, a fragment of something too big to comprehend. The being that had awakened was called the Veiled One in the Dominion's secret logs. They had sealed it long ago after it destroyed their empire. To stop it, they had scattered parts of its consciousness across planets like seeds, hoping it would never reform. But now, by connecting the Halo Shield to Earth's core, they had reunited those fragments and brought it back to awareness. The Veiled One began to speak again, not through words but through emotions that crashed into every human mind. Fear, sorrow, anger, and curiosity spread like waves. Some people fell to their knees, overwhelmed. Others went mad, their minds unable to handle the raw pressure of an ancient intelligence touching them. In cities everywhere, lights flickered with every pulse and the sky shimmered like liquid glass. Ayan tried to block the sound covering her ears, but the voice was inside her thoughts. It showed her visions of the past, stars collapsing, galaxies torn apart, entire civilizations erased in silence. The Veiled One had been there before time had meaning. It was not evil, but it was not good either. It simply existed, vast and eternal, a being that consumed energy, emotion, and thought. And now it was awake again. Samir cried out as another wave hit them. "It's going to destroy everything," he shouted. Ayan shook her head, breathing heavily. "No, it doesn't want to destroy. It wants to remember." But the remembering itself was deadly. The being's consciousness was too vast. Every second it existed in full awareness, it bent space and time around it. Earth's gravity shifted, and the oceans began to rise unnaturally high. Volcanoes erupted in chains across continents. The planet groaned like a living thing under unbearable weight. In the middle of all this chaos, Ayan noticed something strange. The Veiled One wasn't attacking her. Instead, it focused on her more and more, whispering in her thoughts. "You carry my spark," it said again. "The seed we left behind." She didn't understand at first, but then it made sense. Humanity had evolved partly from the life that came from this being. Its energy had been woven into the planet long before humans existed. That was why Earth reacted so strongly to the signal. That was why she could hear it. As the voice grew stronger, Ayan realized she could communicate with it, not through language but through feeling. She closed her eyes, focused, and thought of calm. The voice paused. The shaking stopped for a moment. Samir stared at her in shock. "What did you do?" he asked. "I told it we're not its enemies," she said quietly. "We're its children." But it was not that simple. The Veiled One was confused, fragmented, like a being waking from a nightmare. It remembered betrayal, war, and destruction. It remembered the Dominion, the ones who had trapped it. When it sensed them above Earth, it lashed out instinctively, erasing them without thought. Now it looked to Earth, trying to understand what it had become. Its voice filled every corner of the planet. "I am scattered. I am whole. Who dares wake me again?" The ground split open in many places. From the cracks rose streams of blue light, flowing like rivers into the sky. People called them heaven's tears. They were not tears. They were the veins of the planet opening to the entity's power. Ayan and Samir ran outside and watched the streams rise. The night sky shimmered, showing glimpses of strange shapes moving beyond reality. Structures like living cities, floating in cosmic storms. For a brief moment, all fear vanished. The beauty was indescribable. Humanity was staring into the raw soul of the universe, and then as quickly as it began, the voice faded. The red light in the sky dimmed. The halo shield cracked and broke apart, its pieces falling into the atmosphere like glowing rain. The Dominion was gone. The Veiled One had stopped moving, but it was still there, its presence humming softly beneath the earth. Ayan looked at the sky and whispered, "It's not finished. It's waiting." Samir nodded slowly. The terror had not destroyed the planet, but it had left its mark. And somewhere deep below their feet, something ancient and infinite had opened its eyes for the first time in millions of years. It had seen its reflection in humanity, and now it could never unsee it. The world had fallen silent after the storm of light and sound. The skies were no longer red, but they carried strange ripples like the surface of a disturbed lake. The oceans were calm, yet deep below, tremors kept shaking the seabed. Humanity had survived the awakening, but no one understood how long the peace would last. The Veiled One was no longer speaking, yet its energy still pulsed faintly in every magnetic wave around the planet. Dr. Ayan Malik had not slept in days. Her mind was exhausted, but her thoughts refused to stop. She and Samir sat in the ruins of their observatory, surrounded by broken computers and burnt-out screens. The air smelled of metal and ozone. The Dominion fleet was gone, wiped out in moments. Only pieces of their ships now floated in the upper atmosphere like dead moons. The governments were lost, communication systems were shattered, and every nation struggled to rebuild what was left. But Ayan couldn't think about rebuilding. She kept looking at the faint readings still coming from Earth's magnetic field. The numbers danced across her surviving instruments like the soft beat of a heart. The Veiled One hadn't vanished, it was still here, sleeping again, maybe wounded, maybe resting. "It's not over," she whispered. Samir turned to her, his eyes dark with fear. "Then what do we do?" Before she could answer, an encrypted signal appeared on her terminal, one of the few still working. The source was unknown. It contained coordinates and a single sentence: "If you want to save the planet, come to the Northern Pole." Ayan looked at Samir. "It's from them," she said quietly. "From who?" he asked. "The ones who hid it before, the remnants of the Dominion." Despite everything, she knew she had to go. The world's military and scientific leaders were too broken and scattered to act. Someone had to find out what the aliens had been trying to stop. So she and Samir joined a small research convoy heading toward the Arctic, where strange energy storms had been detected since the awakening. The journey was brutal. Planes couldn't fly near the poles because of magnetic interference, so they traveled by old ships through icy waters that glowed faintly at night. Sometimes they saw lights moving beneath the ocean, vast ghostly shapes too big to be submarines or whales. It was as if the planet itself was breathing. The crew whispered prayers, afraid to look overboard for too long. When they finally reached the coordinates, they found a giant crater of glass and ice. In the center stood what looked like a fragment of a Dominion ship, still humming faintly with alien energy. Around it were ancient ruins buried beneath the ice, structures older than any human civilization. The walls were covered in symbols similar to those seen on the alien ships, but rougher, almost desperate, as if carved in fear. Inside the ruins, they discovered a chamber filled with strange machines. The Dominion technology still worked, glowing with blue light. Holographic recordings began to play automatically when Ayan stepped closer. The image of a Dominion scientist appeared, its body tall, silver, and almost human-like. Its voice trembled with fear. "If you are seeing this, the seal has failed," it said. "The Veiled One has awakened. You must complete the loop before it consumes the seed world." Ayan frowned. "The loop?" she repeated. The hologram continued. "When we trapped the being, we linked its consciousness to the core of this planet. The only way to silence it again is to reverse the flow, bind it through resonance, not force. The planet itself must sing it back to sleep." Samir looked at her in confusion. "Sing it back to sleep?" Ayan nodded slowly, understanding. The alien meant frequency resonance. The Earth had to generate a counterwave strong enough to calm the entity's energy. The Dominion had built the halo shield for this purpose, but when it failed, the flow had gone out of control. The only way to stop it now was to use the same system in reverse, from within Earth's core. She spent days studying the old machines, decoding the alien mathematics, and merging it with human science. It was almost impossible, but she saw a pattern. Earth's magnetic field, the same field that shielded the planet from solar radiation, could be used like a giant antenna. If she could align its frequencies with the energy pattern of the Veiled One, she might be able to lull it back into dormancy. It would mean flooding the planet's core with massive amounts of energy, enough to nearly tear it apart. Samir stared at her in disbelief. "You'll kill us all." Ayan looked at him with tired eyes. "If we don't do this, it'll wake up completely. Then it won't matter." Together, they reactivated the Dominion machines. The alien metal responded to her touch as if it recognized her. She remembered the Veiled One's words. "You carry my spark." Maybe that was why the system accepted her commands. She tuned the machines to Earth's resonance frequency. The walls of the chamber vibrated softly, and a low hum filled the air. It sounded like the world itself was singing. Outside, the sky changed again. The auroras that had vanished after the awakening returned brighter than ever. People around the world watched in awe as ribbons of green and gold danced above every continent. Many thought it was a sign of peace, but Ayan knew it was the beginning of the most dangerous moment in human history. The machines began to overload. Lightning struck the frozen sea as magnetic storms erupted. The feedback loop grew stronger. The energy shot deep into the planet's crust, and for a few moments everything seemed to stand still. Then came the voice again. Not loud this time, but soft and almost sorrowful. "You wish to silence me," it whispered in Ayan's mind. "Why?" She closed her eyes and spoke aloud. "Because you'll destroy everything. We can't survive your awakening." The voice paused. "You are me. You are born of my dust. Why fear what you are?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because we're not ready for you. Maybe we never will be." The ground started shaking violently. Samir screamed as the machine sparked and the walls began to crack. The energy levels were climbing too fast. Ayan realized she had to finish it now, or the planet would break apart. She increased the feedback, connecting the alien system to Earth's magnetic field completely. The chamber filled with blinding light. All over the world, people saw the sky explode into colors. A giant wave of light spread from the North Pole, wrapping the planet in a glowing sphere. The sound of thunder rolled for hours. The oceans boiled, mountains cracked, and entire power grids failed. In that chaos, Ayan stood at the heart of the storm, holding the main control crystal of the alien machine. The energy burned her hands, but she refused to let go. In her mind, she saw visions, endless stars, forgotten worlds, and the Veiled One watching her with eyes as big as galaxies. Its voice echoed softly, no longer angry but curious. "You choose silence," it said. "You choose darkness again." She nodded through the pain. "Yes, we choose to live." Then the voice faded, replaced by a long, deep sigh that rolled across the planet. The tremors stopped. The light dimmed. The auroras vanished, leaving behind clear skies and still air. The machines around her melted into liquid metal and sank into the ground. Ayan collapsed, half-conscious, as Samir dragged her out of the collapsing ruins. When she woke hours later, the sun was rising. The air was warm and silent. The alien ruins were gone, swallowed by the earth. Samir sat beside her, his face covered in ash and tears. "You did it," he said quietly. "It's gone." She looked around. The sky was empty, peaceful, but she could still feel a faint hum beneath her feet, a heartbeat soft and distant. "No," she whispered. "It's sleeping." Days later, rescue teams arrived and took them home. The Dominion's remains continued to fall from orbit, burning like stars in the atmosphere. Scientists called it a miracle that Earth had survived the storm, but Ayan knew the truth. It wasn't a miracle. It was mercy. As she sat in a hospital bed, staring out the window at the calm sky, she recorded her final notes. Her voice was quiet but steady. "We were the key," she said. "They built the trap, but it was our world that held the lock. The Veiled One sleeps again because we reminded it what we were, a fragment of its own creation." She paused and smiled weakly. "Maybe one day when we are ready it will wake again. But this time, not in anger." That night, as she closed her eyes, she felt a soft vibration through the floor, a gentle, rhythmic pulse. It was the sound of the planet breathing, alive and calm. And deep within that sound, just for a moment, she thought she heard a whisper, not of threat but of recognition, a single word echoing through the silence of the earth: "Child." The world slowly began to breathe again. Cities that had been shaken by earthquakes and storms were being rebuilt. Communication networks were restored, and governments held emergency meetings to understand what had happened. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. Not because of peace treaties or trade agreements, but because everyone had survived the awakening of something ancient, vast, and beyond comprehension. The sky was calm, the oceans were quiet, and the magnetic storms that had terrified the world had faded. Yet an unease lingered like a shadow at the edge of vision. People had survived, but they had seen something beyond them, something eternal, and that knowledge changed everything. Dr. Ayan Malik returned to Karachi, exhausted but determined. Her experiences at the Arctic ruins, the feedback loop she had completed, and her connection with the Veiled One had left a mark on her mind and body. Every night she still felt a faint pulse beneath the ground, a reminder that the ancient entity had not vanished. It was sleeping, and part of it was still aware of her. She often sat on the rooftop of her observatory, staring at the stars, feeling both awe and fear. Humanity had survived an incomprehensible threat, but she understood that survival was only temporary. Scientists from around the world flocked to study the remnants of the Dominion ships that had fallen to Earth. Pieces of alien metal, glowing faintly even after exposure to the atmosphere, were collected and examined. Laboratories hummed with excitement and fear, as researchers attempted to understand alien technology that had nearly destroyed them. Ayan, however, did not fully trust these experiments. She had seen firsthand what happened when humanity tried to interfere with the forces that slept beneath the surface. The Veiled One had awoken once. It could awaken again. In the months that followed, cultural shifts began to ripple across the planet. Religions, philosophies, and scientific theories all tried to interpret the event in their own ways. Some called it divine intervention. Others spoke of extraterrestrial guardians. Many simply referred to it as a warning. People changed. Some became more cautious, more aware of the fragility of life. Others became reckless, fascinated by the unknown and eager to explore the secrets of the universe. Governments formed new policies not just to prepare for extraterrestrial threats, but to monitor Earth itself. Satellites and sensors were deployed to detect any unusual activity, particularly in the magnetic field and deep-sea environments. Despite the public fascination, Ayan remained focused on understanding the Veiled One. She discovered that the entity's consciousness was linked not only to Earth's core, but also to its energy patterns, the magnetic field, the tectonic plates, the oceans, even the biosphere. Every living being, every ocean current, every wind pattern was somehow part of its vast awareness. Humanity had always been a fragment of this consciousness, and that was why the awakening had been so intense. The realization was both terrifying and humbling. Humans were not the dominant force on Earth. They were part of a much greater system. Ayan began to write her findings, though she did so cautiously. Many governments wanted to keep the existence of the Veiled One a secret, fearing mass panic. Others argued that the world had a right to know. She recorded her thoughts and experiences in a private journal, documenting everything from the first signal to the completion of the feedback loop that had returned the entity to dormancy. She detailed the dreams, the visions, and the whispers she had felt during the awakening. It was her hope that someday, humanity would understand the enormity of what had happened. Meanwhile, the planet itself seemed to be healing. Volcanic activity slowed, tectonic tremors diminished, and the magnetic field stabilized. The auroras, which had been so violent during the awakening, now glimmered softly across the polar skies, a subtle reminder of the entity that slept below. Animals behaved more normally and ecosystems began to recover. Humanity was learning to live again, but the memory of the event was ingrained in the collective consciousness. People spoke quietly of the red sky, the pulses, the voices, and the shadows. They had witnessed something eternal, and that knowledge would never fade. Ayan also observed changes in human behavior. Many individuals who had experienced visions or dreams connected to the Veiled One reported feelings of deep understanding, empathy, and even heightened intuition. Some began to pursue careers in science exploration or environmental preservation, driven by a newfound sense of responsibility. Others, however, became obsessed with awakening the entity again, believing they could control its power. These individuals were rare but dangerous, and Ayan made it her mission to monitor any attempts to manipulate Earth's energy systems. One day, as she was reviewing satellite data from the polar regions, Ayan noticed something remarkable. The remnants of the Dominion's energy grid were still present beneath the ice, faintly glowing. Though inert, they retained the pattern she had used to lull the Veiled One to sleep. It was a reminder that the entity's influence could be felt even without its full awareness. She realized that Earth itself had become a living archive, holding the memory and energy of the ancient being. Humanity had survived, but they had inherited a responsibility far greater than they could comprehend. Across the world, monuments and memorials were built to commemorate the event. Some honored the Dominion fleet, recognizing their role in containing the Veiled One. Others focused on human heroes, scientists, and ordinary people who had survived the chaos. Education systems began teaching about the awakening, emphasizing the delicate balance between life on Earth and forces beyond comprehension. Literature, art, and music reflected the experience, capturing the awe, fear, and wonder of humanity's encounter with the ancient entity. Despite the healing and rebuilding, subtle changes in the planet continued to remind humanity of what had occurred. The magnetic field occasionally pulsed faintly, sensors picked up irregular deep-sea readings, and some remote regions reported unusual animal behavior. Scientists speculated, but Ayan understood the truth. The Veiled One was still aware, still connected to the planet, and still watching. It had returned to dormancy, but dormancy did not mean destruction. It meant patience, observation, and waiting for the right moment. Ayan herself changed profoundly. Her connection with the Veiled One left her with a deep sense of purpose. She no longer feared the entity but respected it. She understood that humanity's survival depended on balance between exploration and caution, curiosity and restraint. She began training a new generation of scientists and researchers, emphasizing not only technical knowledge but also intuition, ethics, and respect for forces beyond human understanding. Her work became a blend of science and philosophy, teaching that Earth was part of a larger cosmic web, and that survival depended on awareness, humility, and cooperation. In the years that followed, humanity made incredible advances. The remnants of alien technology allowed for breakthroughs in energy, medicine, and space travel. Humans reached further into space than ever before, but always with caution. The story of the Veiled One became a guiding principle. Explore, but do not awaken what must remain asleep. Even as cities grew taller, technology advanced faster, and knowledge expanded, the lessons of the awakening were never forgotten. Yet Ayan knew that the Veiled One would never truly leave. Its energy was woven into every aspect of Earth, and it would always watch, quietly influencing life and events in subtle ways. She often felt its presence in her thoughts, a faint, comforting vibration beneath her skin. She understood now that humanity was not alone, never had been and never would be. They were part of something far greater, something eternal, and their role was to survive, learn, and respect that vastness. On quiet nights, when the sky was clear and stars shimmered like diamonds, Ayan would stand on her observatory rooftop, looking beyond the Earth. She would feel the pulse beneath her feet, a soft reminder that the Veiled One slept but was aware. The world had survived the awakening, the Dominion had fallen, and humanity had endured. Yet the memory of what had almost destroyed them lingered like a shadow, reminding them that the universe was larger, older, and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. In her journal, Ayan wrote her final thoughts. They tried to trap us to use our world as a lure, but we were never truly prey. The Veiled One is not an enemy. It is a part of us, a fragment of the universe's memory. We survived not because we were strong, but because we were part of something greater, and one day when the stars are right it may awaken again, but then perhaps we will be ready. Humanity moved forward, cautious yet determined. The event became a turning point in history, a reminder that even in a universe filled with incomprehensible power, survival was possible when courage, knowledge, and respect guided action. And deep beneath the earth, in the quiet and darkness, the Veiled One slept, dreaming of galaxies and stars, waiting patiently, watching its children, and remembering the world it had awakened.